chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions passed through his mind. It was as he was lying in bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream. Daniel said, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven churning up the great sea. Four great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the mind of a human was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, 'Get up and eat your fill of flesh.' After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair on his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into the presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. The interpretation of the dream. I, Daniel, was troubled in the spirit, and the visions that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked the meaning of all this. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever. Yes, forever and ever. Then I wanted to know the meaning of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others and most terrifying. With its iron teeth and bronze claws, the beast that crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also want to know about the 10 horns on its head and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the holy people and defeating them, until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favour of the holy people of the Most High. And the time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms, and it will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns and 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will rise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and the laws. The holy people will be delivered into his hands for a time, and half a time. But the court will sit, and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of the kingdom under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. This is the end of the matter. I, Daniel, was deeply troubled by my thoughts, and my face turned pale. But I kept the matter to myself. This is the word of the Lord.
Well, friends, as Mike said, we do come now to a very crucial passage in the scope of the Bible. And if you read through, maybe it was something that you've found a little bit hard to get your head around. So why don't we come to God? First of all, we've just heard his word, and as we come to consider it and how it applies to us, why don't we ask him to help us? Let me lead us in prayer. Our gracious and most merciful God, we do ask right now that as we open your word again, as we've just heard it read, we ask now as we think of it as it is explained, give us ears to hear, give us hearts as well, and wills to understand and to live by what you say. And more than that, we do ask, encourage us by your word this morning. And we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, as you look around the world this day, you don't need to go very far to see nation invading nation, nation hurting nation. You've only got to look to see Russia invading Ukraine, claiming that they have the right to do so, and claiming that it is okay to bomb civilian neighbourhoods. That is not an issue. We see Israel invading the Palestine territories, claiming it is the right of Israel to do so, and again, they bomb civilian neighbourhoods. We have seen Iran sending drones and missiles into Israel. They claim Israel does not have the right to exist. And of course, we have seen America claim that it wants to take over Canada and Greenland and Cuba and Venezuela, just name a few. This is our world. Nation invading nation. Nation hurting nation. Empires are built on one nation conquering and enslaving another. That's the heart and the soul of the human race. If I have power, I use that power to oppress the powerless. It's human nature, it is sinful nature to intimidate, to threaten, to harm. It's human nature to be a bully. And this issue of bullying, it is not just global, it's actually also personal. It's a huge social problem because bullying is what sinful people do when they have power over others. A bully is a person who's going to use their strength or their influence to intimidate and harm those who have no strength or influence. And you see that in children. With them it's tactless, it's blatant, it's also rampant, depending on the year at school. Between 1 in 4 and 1 in 3 children are bullied. We've seen it in social media, cyberbullying. It's a social epidemic. Over half of teens are being bullied online. And of course, if you're in the workplace, 3 out of 4 workers have been bullied at some time. Age is irrelevant here, by the way. Half of those bullied are over 45. This is our society. As children, as teens, adults, and this is our world. And the question, what's God going to do about this? It's an important question, both personally and politically. What's God going to do about these bullies, these nations who bully nations, these individuals who bully individuals? And how do we respond to all of this? And let me tell you, the answer to that may surprise you a little bit. So just wait for as we come to it. Let's come to chapter 7. What's happening here? Daniel is having a vision. And now the vision in chapter 7 here actually has parallels all the way back to chapter 2, where Nebuchadnezzar has a vision. And by the way, that vision happened some 51 years earlier. Daniel is now an old man. And just to give a quick recap, the dream in chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar sees a statue in 4 parts. And it was revealed that this statue, these 4 parts, represented 4 kingdoms. So the head of gold, that represented Babylon. Then there was the chest of silver, that was the Medes and Persians, the next kingdom that would come. And then the torso of bronze, well, that's going to be the Greeks, that's going to be the kingdom after them. And then finally the legs and feet of iron and clay, that's going to be the Romans. And then there's a 5th element to this dream. And this disturbed Nebuchadnezzar. There's a rock cut out, but not by human hands. And then this rock strikes the statue at the feet and then destroys it completely. And this rock is a 5th kingdom. A kingdom set up by God, a kingdom that will never be destroyed. And in chapter 7, Daniel has a vision. This vision also has 5 elements to it. And these 5 elements actually mirror the 5 elements of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So if you have a look at verse 17, we're told, the 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms that will rise from the earth. Then the 5th element in verse 18, but the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever and ever. So that first beast, that winged lion, of course, represents Babylon. On the screen there, you'll see that the winged lions there, that's like one of the ones that you'll see on the streets of Babylon. And that's something that's been taken out of an archaeological dig in Babylon. There are about 120 of these life-size winged lions that line the street. Now, Babylon, of course, is represented by Nebuchadnezzar. And in verse 4, just have a look there, you'll notice that this lion has its wings torn off. Then it's lifted from the ground and given the heart of a man, or the mind of a man there. Now, you remember back in chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar was humbled. He was made to live like a wild animal for 7 years. He had his wings torn off, as it were. He then returns his eyes to heaven. He acknowledges God, and his sanity is restored. His mind is then given back to him. He's lifted up, stood up to be like a man, given the mind of a man again. That's the first one. Now, I won't go through all the others in detail, but just to give you a quick survey, and I'll put them on the screen there so you can read through. The second beast represents the Medo-Persian Empire. The third beast is the third kingdom, represents Greece. The fourth beast, the terrifying and frightening one, represents Rome. Daniel's vision has some stark differences to Nebuchadnezzar's. So in chapter 2, we're seeing things from a man's perspective. In Nebuchadnezzar's vision, the kingdoms of the world are represented by a statue. What do statues do? Well, they display the glory of the king and therefore the glory of the kingdom. These kingdoms of the world, they see themselves as being glorious. They differ in splendour, to be sure. You know, one's got the gold, one's the silver, one's the bronze, one's got the strength of iron. And from a human perspective, kingdoms are great. They're glorious. I mean, Donald Trump ran on this. What's he want to do? Make America great. Chapter 7, we look at things from a different perspective. We see the same four kingdoms, not from man's perspective, but from God's perspective. The kingdoms of the world, they're not seen as glorious. They're seen as beast-like, subhuman. They're ferocious, they're violent. They fight, they devour. Whenever one is put in a position of strength or influence against another, they intimidate, they harm those who are weaker. Remember our definition of a bully from earlier? A bully is a person who, when they have the power, or when they have the strength or the influence, they intimidate and harm those who are weaker. In the eyes of people, the kingdoms of this world are great, they're glorious. In the eyes of God, the kingdoms of this world are nothing more than bullies. Let me show you what I mean. Have a look at verse 7. What does the fourth beast do with his power? Just an example. He terrifies, he frightens, he crushes, he devours his victims, he then tramples them down when they're helpless. That's just bullying on a large campus. And I could give examples, as could you, of what's going on in the world just at the moment, of all of these things happening. And the question is, well, what's God actually going to do about all of this? Well, let's have a look. Verse 9. Just consider what is happening here. For this is a pivotal, this is a turning point here. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seats. His clothing was white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were open. These thrones, they're set up in a courtroom. Then God, that's who the Ancient of Days is, he takes his seat. Now that title is important. Age reflects wisdom. This one has been around from ancient times. He's got infinite wisdom. He won't be fooled. The whiteness of the hair, the whiteness of the clothing, there's purity here. That's what that's representing. The fire also has a purifying quality. Anything not wanted, anything impure, that's going to be burned up, as we'll see in a moment. The throne has wheels. It means it can move. It can go anywhere. He can judge at any place. And this mighty figure, he's attended by so many servants. You can't count them. The court is seated. The books are open. This court of wisdom and justice is seated. Judgment is about to take place. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, this is not a good time to boast. Look what happens, verse 11. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain and its body destroyed and was thrown into the blazing fire. You see, when does a person boast? Well, you'd want to say, from a biblical point of view, you should never boast because you have nothing to boast about. But from a human perspective, when do you boast? Well, you boast when you've won. You boast when you're victorious. You boast when you cannot be defeated. But understand this. The court is seated. Judgment is about to be handed down. What do we see? We see the person whose judgment is just about to be handed down. They're boasting. They think they've won, but they haven't. They've lost. While he thinks he's invisible, what does God do to this bully? Well, God has judged him. More than that, he removes him completely from existence. Not only is he slain, verse 11, but the body is destroyed. It's thrown into the blazing fire. It's completely consumed. And this is the judgment that God has. He has no tolerance for these bullies, these who will use their strength and their influence to harm those who are weaker. And the message is stark. God is going to bring judgment. And that judgment is all-consuming. And if that's what he's going to bring, then the immediate question that leaps to my mind at least is, well, when's this going to happen? Well, let's have a look because we get a clue, verse 13 and 14. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and people of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So this one like a son of man comes now into God's presence, riding on the clouds of heaven. And as he comes into God's presence, he actually doesn't do so arrogantly, but he does do so victoriously. He's not boasting like the horn. And if you have a look at verse 14, he's given authority, glory, sovereign power. All nations worship him. Dominion is everlasting, not pass away. His kingdom will never be destroyed. The bullying nations of this world have been defeated. Their power is at an end, but the Son of Man now is one that has all power, all authority, all dominion. And, of course, we know who this one like the Son of Man is. It is Jesus. That's the name Jesus uses for himself in the Gospels. And there's a very big difference, a fundamental difference between the Son of Man and the beastly nations of the world. And there are several, as a matter of fact. One is that he actually gets to come into God's presence. But a second one is how they use their power. The Son of Man has absolute power. He has the power that all the kingdoms of the world wish that they had. But this Son of Man, this Jesus, is not a person who uses his strength or his influence to intimidate or to harm those who are weaker. And this is where things, from a human perspective, get weird. But if you've read your Bible, you may guess what is coming. This is what Jesus says to his disciples. I'll read the full text, and then there's a bit on the screen. Jesus called his disciples together and said this: "You know the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, they bully them. And their high officials exercise authority over them." What does Jesus say? Well, not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great, what do they need to do? They must become your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. And then he says this: just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So here's the big difference. Sinful men and women, when put in a position of power, will use their power to glorify themselves. That's what sin does. What does Jesus do? Does he use his power to intimidate, to threaten, to harm? No. He uses his power to serve and to save. Jesus uses his power to save us, firstly, from that ultimate bully, Satan. Satan is the one who uses the power and authority that he has to tempt us to sin. And if we fall into that temptation, will then accuse us of that sin before God. Satan is the one who from ancient times he's been seeking to intimidate us and to harm us. Yet Jesus is the one who defeats this bully once and for all. The Bible is clear here, as it says in Colossians 2. And having disarmed the powers and authorities, he, that is Jesus, made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. See, when Jesus hangs on that cross, he's the one who's the public spectacle. He was bullied by those in power. He was falsely accused of doing wrong. He was mocked. He was physically beaten. He was humiliated. Then he was killed. And this act against Jesus is a public spectacle that people came to watch. Yet, here's the irony. It's through this act of bullying that the one who bullied the human race from the beginning is defeated. The powers and authorities referred to here are the spiritual powers of evil. Of course, the head of this power is Satan. But Satan is now the one who is humiliated. He's the one who now is standing defeated. The one who would use all his power and authority to bully us now stands defeated at the cross. And he is defeated because there is now no accusation he can make against us that the blood of Jesus cannot pardon. You got that? No accusation can stand against us because the blood of Jesus pardons it all. And if you're here this morning and you feel that there is something that Satan has got against you, if you feel as if in some way you're hearing Satan's accusations against you, maybe you fear coming to God because there is guilt, or maybe you feel that you are somehow unlovable or unworthy, or that God could not possibly forgive you. Well, these feelings of fear, of being unloved, of being unworthy, because they're the sorts of feelings that bullies inspire in others. And if you feel that way, you don't need to feel that way any longer. Because Jesus has already died for your sin. And you are already forgiven if you accept that. Jesus has already triumphed over your accuser. There's now nothing to fear. And if you feel as if somehow God doesn't love you or he couldn't forgive you, look to the cross. Now any accusation is just a lie. And it should be treated as such. And when Jesus defeated that bully, he rose again from the dead. He ascended, and remember at the end of the Gospels, what do the disciples see? They see Jesus disappearing into the clouds. Jesus is then led into the presence of God, where he sits down and begins his reign. God's judgment, you see, against the bullies who would intimidate us is begun at the cross. And now the Son of Man sits at the right hand of God. So what does all of this now mean for us? We turn on our TVs and we see on the news nation bullying nation, as we see violence and death being rained down on the innocent, as we see leaders boast in what they will do. And you might be thinking, well, where's the justice here? Where's the judgment? And what does it mean if I go into my workplace this week and I'm bullied? Or I go into the schoolyard or wherever it might be, or maybe if I go home today and bullying is going to be part of my domestic experience. What is going on? Well, God has already dealt with our biggest bully. He stands defeated at the cross. And this same Jesus who defeated Satan is now sitting on the throne. And he's sitting there, and the next thing he is going to do, of course, is bring judgment as he returns. So now is not the time to be a bully. For even as the bullies boast, as we saw, judgment is already being handed down. And in this context, the Bible actually gives us some advice to live on. And as I said at the beginning, it may not be what you expect. And this is the advice. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord." So what does this mean for us? Let the Lord deal with the bully. Let the Lord bring justice. What do? We just serve. We serve the Lord. And whether we see that bully on the world stage or in the playground, let the Lord deal with that. Don't repay their evil with your own. Don't take revenge. Why? Well, friends, time is short. Jesus has already died. Jesus has already risen. And Jesus is already seated on his throne. In the time remaining, it is not for us to bring vengeance. It is for us to serve the Lord. Now, in your situation, it may not be easy. You might be going through a hard time at the moment. Your situation may not be easy, but it is, as we saw at the beginning, common. Let me encourage you, lift your eyes up. Look and see that Jesus is already seated on the throne. Serve him. Trust him to look after you and to bring you safely into his presence on the last day, not to face judgment, but to enjoy salvation, a place where there is no longer any fear or danger or accusation or lie, but only the loving embrace of the one who died so that you could have eternal life. So what do we do now? Trust in Jesus to be your Saviour, and trust Jesus to bring the right judgment at the right time. Let me lead us in prayer. Our gracious God, we do thank you that Jesus is both Saviour and Lord. Help us this day, particularly for those of us who may be going through difficult times. Lord, help us to trust Jesus as both our Saviour and our Lord. And we ask, Father, that you would help us to live serving you until the day that we stand before you. And we pray this all in the name of our mighty Saviour and Lord.